Democrat Congressman Jim Langevin, he's back in Rhode Island. He got in late Thursday night. It must have been a disappointing Thursday, Congressman, because you thought you would wrap up the spending bill. Unfortunately, the far left members of your party, the progressives, are derailing that and embarrassing the president. You pick it up.
Well, we're getting closer to the finish line, Gene, and this is a large spending bill that's going to do many good things, both for the country and for working families in our country. And we're right now fine-tuning what that final package will be. Mm-hmm. As you know, because the number started pretty high at a $3.5 trillion package, right. And now we're negotiating something that's much modest, if you want to call it that. It's still a robust package, but it's a $1.7 trillion package is the number that we've coalesced around. And by the way, that's in addition to the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, the hard infrastructure for roads and bridges. But this other infrastructure package, the soft infrastructure package, as they call it, it's going to get support to middle-class families and with tax credits for child care and support for affordable housing and expanded support for our broader health care infrastructure. Those things are being fine-tuned right now. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm confident that we're going to get it across the finish line.
Okay, boy. All right, listen, you're pretty positive. What I hear is that, yeah, you got the $1 trillion. That was a bipartisan thing. The Senate agrees to that. But you're fighting over this. It was supposed to be $3 trillion. Now it's down to $1.75 trillion. You're ready to vote on it because you understand compromise. But for what I'm hearing from Nancy Pelosi and the president, the far left members of your party don't understand compromise. They want it all, and they want it now, and they're going to block it, Congressman. Isn't that the truth?
No, the truth is actually they understand that it's not going to be the progressives understand it's not going to be the $3.5 trillion package. The votes are not there because Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema wouldn't support a number that high. And so the number has come down to, we've negotiated it down to something that is lower than the original number that we started with. But it's still, a $1.7 trillion package is robust. I was with the president yesterday morning. And as the president himself outlined, he said, if any one of the individual provisions in this package were to be brought up before the Congress, he said, we've compromised on this. Yeah. For example, the support for child care and making sure that no family is paying more than 7% of their income for child care, or making the refundable child tax credit permanent. Any one of these things, we would be cheering and saying what a great Democratic victory it is. Yep. So, but collectively, it's a exciting package that's going to do so much for our country and for working families. But we've got to get it across the finish line, and it's a negotiation. You're having
a tough time. The president came up to the Capitol, pleaded with the people, please pass it. Nancy Pelosi said, don't embarrass the president. His entire presidency is at stake. All the reporters are chasing down AOC and Jayapal. They're not chasing you, and they're not chasing Cicilline or Auchincloss across state lines. They want those progressives because they're holding it up, Congressman. You know that. You're being very diplomatic, but lay it out.
Well, I'm very pragmatic, and I understand how there are passions on both sides of this, but we've got to find a compromise. And the president himself said, it is a negotiation. It is a compromise. We're building on consensus, and we're finding that consensus. We all see the light at the end of the tunnel. The president is the closer. That's why he was on Capitol Hill with us yesterday. We had a lot of enthusiasm in that room. There was a lot of talk about highlighting the many provisions that are in the bill that I've outlined that are going to be exciting changes and help for middle class families and families at the lower end of the income scale. And as the president was leaving the room, I had a chance to talk to him. I shook his hand and I said, Mr. President, I said, in the words of a great philosopher, this is a big freaking deal. I maybe was a little more specific with the president than that, but you get the point. This is a big deal.
Okay. I'm going to ask you if you spoke to the president about how disappointed you were. in the way he pulled out of Afghanistan. You were on the radio with me and you said it was an absolute disaster, unexcusable. They didn't listen to people, and now look what they left us, a broken Afghanistan in the end. I know you don't want to embarrass the president, but have you communicated to him or his people how disappointed you were in the way that ended?
Yeah, both publicly and private, I've let the administration know where I stand. I'm not going to be shy about calling it as I see it. I thought that it was the wrong decision to pull out of Afghanistan in the way that we did, and I said that it was not the right course of action. It's a catastrophe. I stand by what I said both then and now. I felt that the 2,500 troop presence that was there was a bargain in the sense that by backing up the Afghan security forces, that we would be maintaining a stable Afghanistan. I understand that 2,500 troops on their own would not do the job, but we weren't doing the fighting. We would bring more providing the logistics and the backup for the reconnaissance and other intelligence information to the Afghan security forces who were doing the fighting and the securing of Afghanistan. So I felt that it was the right course of action to keep that troop presence there for a longer period of time to maintain a stable Afghanistan so that the groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS could not plot and plan against it. So that was my position then. It's my position now.
Right.
And I am concerned about where we're going and the ability for Al-Qaeda or ISIS to reconstitute and plot and plan against it. So I had a briefing earlier this week about over-the-horizon ability to strike at those and should they reconstitute, but it's not an ideal situation.
All right. In the end, they didn't listen to you. They didn't listen to Jack Reed. And from what I hear, General Milley said the president didn't even listen to me. Should the average American at home be concerned that President Biden is listening to anybody at this point? We got a crisis. There are Americans trapped there. They can't get out.
Look, we all want our troops to come home eventually. The president wanted to accelerate that timeline. He's the commander-in-chief. He gets to make that call. We have to make sure that we are exercising all ability right now to understand what's happening in Afghanistan and prevent any entity from plotting and planning against us. That is my goal as a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee, and I am going to be pressing the administration in every way possible to make sure that we have our eyes focused on the potential threats coming from Afghanistan, and we eliminate it, cut it off early if those threats arise to the greatest degree possible that we can do that.
I have a lot to get to. Just a minute in this segment. Immigration. The president has another caravan coming up. They arrived in Mexico. They're walking up. They're going to be here. It's going to be another disaster at the border. I know you don't agree with President Trump on the way he handles things, but do you agree with the way this president is handling immigration? It seems it's a little too loose down there, even to the average person who's sympathetic to the plight of people who want a better life, Congressman.
Look, I want secure borders, but I also want a compassionate and comprehensive immigration system so we achieve comprehensive immigration reform. Several years ago, the United States Senate passed a strong bipartisan immigration reform bill. We never got, under Republican control, never got even a chance to vote on that bill. I want to see comprehensive immigration reform before the Congress, and let's fix our broken immigration system so we end the caravans and end those who are trying to come across the border illegally. I don't support illegal immigration. I don't support people coming across the border that are not properly documented. The best way that we can secure our borders and prevent that from happening is achieve comprehensive immigration reform and fix our immigration system.
Congressman Jim Langevin is with me. Congress, just a couple of footnotes from that last topic we talked about immigration. The Biden administration is seriously thinking of giving people who are separated at the border may have been traumatized by that. Wall Street Journal says up to $450,000 per person, maybe $1 million per family. I understand people were traumatized. Nobody wanted that. Nobody wants anybody harmed. But the notion of paying illegals who came across the country against the law, any settlement or any money near that sounds preposterous to people. You say what to that report?
Gene, that's the first I've heard of that report, so it's something I'd have to look into it. I can't comment. It's not a proposal I'm familiar with.
All right, fair enough. It's in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure you'll take a look at it after we tape. Was the border situation better under President Trump? And can you say that?
At some points, it ebbed and flowed. There were still people that were trying to get across the border illegally. And look, I don't support coming across the border illegally. We need to make sure we have tough border security. But the best thing that we can do is to make sure that we have a fix our broken immigration system and eliminate the backlogs of people wanting to come here. And the people I understand are desperate for a better life. In some of these countries are horrible living conditions. They're living under threats of violence. I mean, I can't imagine how desperate a mother is that she, in one of these countries that is so poor, or the threats of violence, that they would send their young children on this treacherous journey, more than 1,000 miles, to get to a better life in America, send them on their own. I can't imagine that kind of desperation. That is what they're facing. It doesn't make it right, but I'm saying that the best way that we can deal with this is fix our broken immigration system, and yes, make sure that we have strong border security.
Ted Cruz says he wants 12, 13 new ports of entry, including Block Island, Rhode Island, and Newport. If he has to suffer in Texas, you should suffer too up here in Rhode Island. You said keep Rhode Island out of your mouth, Ted Cruz? Well, what's going on?
Yeah, I was very upset by Ted Cruz and his callous comments. I think he's a clown in a lot of ways. And if he wants to get serious about immigration reform and doing something about it, he can work with us in a bipartisan way, like the Senate did years ago, where they passed that strong bipartisan immigration reform bill, and let's fix our broken immigration system. But when Ted Cruz starts, callously talking about Rhode Island that way, yeah, I'm going to call him out, and I did.
Yeah, you don't think that was just tweaking you a little bit, sarcastically throwing that out there? Well, if I have to suffer, you too. You took it seriously?
Yeah, this is a very serious issue. The immigration reform is a very serious issue, and he should stop playing what I call childish games and get serious about legislating.
Okay. You are the party's point person on cybersecurity. We've been talking about it since you got in Congress, warning about it. You're on a television station that got hacked. We believe the Russians got us here and holding us up for ransom. I'm lucky that I have you today on this computer setup. We're vulnerable, and the country's vulnerable. Has anything improved?
Yeah, I heard about the situation at Channel 10 getting hit by ransomware, and unfortunately, this ransomware epidemic is pervasive everywhere, and we need to double down to make sure that we are both going after the hackers, preventing them from acting with impunity. I was in the Oval Office with President Biden going back a couple of months ago, and I complimented him on the work that he's doing on cybersecurity and how he's calling out the Russians to do more to crack down on entities that are operating within their borders, that are carrying out these ransomware attacks. But we are finally at the stage, after years of trying and working to make sure that we have all the right people in place. I was able to get legislation enacted that created the first ever Senate-confirmed National Cyber Director. Chris Inglis is that inaugural director. We have more robust support going to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS now. And once we pass our appropriations bills, there'll be millions of dollars going to briefing up that agency. So we are getting stronger and better, and we need to continue to lead on the international front with our partners and allies around the world. Cybersecurity is an ongoing, pervasive challenge. It's not going to go away anytime soon. We need to make sure that we are more resilient, so the bad guys can't get in the first place. If they do get in, they can't get anything, and making sure that we're all practicing good cyber hygiene, making sure that applying security patches and all the other things that go along with keeping us secure.
Getting into a television company is one thing. Getting into the government and fiddling with what could be military systems, which I know you're worried about as well, is another thing.
Very serious issues for sure. Cybersecurity is the #1 security challenge that we're facing.
And you know who's behind it. Putin knows who's behind it. He could pick up the phone and stop it if he wants. And that leads me to the Chinese. They have a hand in this as well. And boy, they have a hand in a lot of things these days, surprising us with supersonic missiles. Are we being tough enough on China? And are we being tough enough in finding out just where the Wuhan virus came from?
So we need to realize that and continue to expect that China will be an ongoing challenge and rival to us in the world. We hope that they don't become an enemy, but they are a rival, and they're going to continue to challenge us in so many ways, both economically and militarily. I was concerned, of course, by this recent revelation of the hypersonic missile that they have develop. We are in the process of doing that. In fact, it's my subcommittee that oversees the research and development work on hypersonics. I know that we are developing hypersonic missile technology as well. But right now, it looks like the Chinese are ahead of us, and we need to make sure we close that gap, and I'm determined to make sure that we do.
You don't have to let any secrets up, but General Milley seemed to call it a Sputnik moment, that we were like, wow, they could do that? Were you saying, wow, they could do that? Did it catch you by surprise?
Well, we knew that just as we are developing hypersonic missile technology, the China is doing the same, Russia is doing the same. It's the missile technology of the future. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it looks like China has a advantage in terms of a couple of years, advantages in terms of this hypersonic missile technology. We will get there as well and have a robust hypersonic missile force. But I'm also working on a way. I am one of the leaders in the Congress on the technology to intercept things like the hypersonic missile technology. Directed energy weapons. Laser technology is a weapon system of the future. Because of my direct support and leadership, we now have robust laser systems that are being developed. In fact, we have a laser weapon system on the USS Portland that is in theater right now on a ship that has the potential to intercept things like both not only low-flying drones, but also missiles that could be aimed at our troops in the fleet.
We just have a couple of minutes left. Let's look to some issues closer to home here in Rhode Island. The members of Congress, the delegation, got Rhode Island $1.2 billion in COVID relief money. It hasn't been spent yet. Now, Governor McKee wants about 10% freed up. It seems to me the leadership is holding on to that, particularly going into a political year. They said, well, there's process, hearings to go. Is this the way you wanted that to work? You got us $1 billion. Should that money have been spent yet?
Well, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and going back early on, myself, along with my colleagues in the delegation, our focus was getting the federal dollars as robustly as possible to Rhode Island, and now it's up to state leaders to make sure that that money gets to where it's supposed to go. I hope we can get it out the door as quickly as possible. It should be, every dollar should be spent for the purpose that it was intended to be spent for. Again, dealing with the effects of COVID, helping our small businesses. I want that money out the door as soon as possible. So I encourage our state leaders, the governor and the legislative leaders and the members of the House and the Senate around to hopefully get that money out into the community as soon as possible. We
just have 1 minute. I know you're disappointed in the RICAS scores that just came out. We tanked. We understand the pandemic and laptop learning, but it's systemic, it's historic. The numbers are bad. Kids in Rhode Island, a lot of them can't read or write, and they can't do basic math. Take 30 seconds to sum that up. You went to school in Rhode Island.
Yeah, look, I'm very proud of our the work that's done in education in so many ways. It's a tough job, but I know that our educators are on the front lines every day. And trying to have to adapt during the pandemic was not easy. And I'm sure that there are going to be consequences as a result of not having kids in the classroom. Mm-hmm. But again, we had to do what we needed to do to try to adapt. We did the educators in there did the best that they could to get our kids, up to speed and keeping them at grade level. Obviously, there's work to do, and we're going to redouble our efforts. I know they are going to redouble their efforts to make sure that our kids get caught up. Those grade scores are going to improve in the future. I have no doubt. The pandemic was a setback. None of us wanted it. We're thrown into this situation, educators especially, and we need to make sure we're doing the right thing by our kids by making sure.
We'll let you hold it there. Congressman, I've got to hold it there, but thank you for joining me, and thank you for being with us. That's 10 News Conference, Region's #1 and longest-running political program. We'll have the Congressman back again soon.